2006. Professor Rinnooy is chairman of the Social Economic Council. Alexander, I would like to give the floor to you, please.
Thank you very much for that nice introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, it is always a pleasure to be in Boston. It is especially a pleasure to be in Boston in springtime, as I discovered this morning. It is certainly a special pleasure to be here on a very special occasion, this very special seminar. And it is certainly an honor to be the opening speaker on the Dutch knowledge economy. Kenniseconomie. For whatever reason, it doesn't sound quite right, but I think most of you know what I mean anyhow. And by the end of my speech, all of you should know what I mean. It is a real honor. I really appreciate the opportunity. And at the same time, it is also a bit of a challenge, because this is a rather unusual audience, as all of you, I'm sure, would agree. Let's say the real Dutch here, let's call them the Dutch, about 30, I understand, are a special subgroup from the Netherlands. They are essentially the persons pulling the strings of that knowledge economy, at least many of the strings that are there. And of course, there is one special string that I'm sure they would all like to pull, and that I certainly would like to pull with them, which is the string that would pull the other Dutch, let's call them the American Dutch, back to Holland. That would be great. So to pull that string is maybe the implicit role that I have here. And well, how can you possibly do that? Maybe the best way to do it, or the easiest way to do it, is to make sure that by the end of this presentation, the American Dutch here are deeply, deeply nostalgic of the Netherlands. Deeply nostalgic of the Netherlands. So what I probably would have to do, I would have to describe what it would be like right now to cycle along the canals of Amsterdam in the early spring, these lovely trees, light green, the smell of the spring in the air on the way to your lab. Anticipating the weekend in Paris that is to follow shortly. That sort of stuff. And I can already see some eyes here misting over. So, very tempting, very easy, maybe quite effective. And at the same time, honesty has to prevail. Of course, we do have a problem or two in the Dutch knowledge economy behind our dikes. And at the same time, if I have to be perfectly honest, I'm really extremely envious of all the American Dutch here who spend their days working in the fantastic environment that the US provides to its academics. At the top, if you will, of the US academic pyramid, life is sweet. Anticipating, perhaps in your case, a weekend in Manhattan. That's not bad either. And so as I walked across Harvard Yard on my way to the faculty club, I realized how fortunate, at least some of you are, to regard that as their working or studying environment. It must be one of the finest academic environments that the world can offer. So, a tough challenge. I will do my best. The question is, where do I begin? And I suppose the right way to begin is to do what most of you have been doing last night, which is to essentially recall your own US academic story. Almost everybody here has some kind of US, some kind of American academic story. And I heard a couple of wonderful ones last night. So perhaps it is appropriate for me to begin in a similar fashion. And my US academic story, I suppose, starts in 1977, when for the first time I had a visiting appointment in California, the University of California at Berkeley, where I spent several wonderful summers at Evans Hall. I know that some of you out here know what Evans Hall looks like. Earthquake-proof building, not the prettiest one on campus, but a fantastic place to spend these summers in. And I have to say, and I'm sure that this is something that all of you will recognize in your own way, it was really an eye-opener. It was just an eye-opener to me. Here was this fantastic university 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the graduate students being all over the place, day and night, the staff, of course, the academics, the professors themselves, working away, just in constant debate with each other. A sequence of famous visitors you knew the names of and now could see the faces of. It was just an incredible experience. And of course, as a small footnote, the salaries of the stars well in excess of, let's say, the norm set by our previous prime minister. So much for immortality, I thought, that you have to become famous because you have the Balkan and the norm. Melkertbaan, het kwartje van Kok. It's a tough profession. So that is how it started for me, and maybe for some of you as well. So over the years, I of course revisited and got reconfirmation of the beauty of this fantastic Berkeley campus. As you just heard, I spent a fantastic 6 months here in Boston visiting MIT, living next to Symphony Hall with my family, discovering the sort of technological innovation atmosphere of the Boston area. And by the way, simultaneously discovering what I think must be the worst bureaucracy in the world. MIT, I'm sorry to say, I've never experienced a bureaucracy that was worse than the MIT bureaucracy. And by the time I had left, they grudgingly had started to pay my salary. With visible reluctance, I would almost say. So whatever they say about US universities, bureaucracy reigns worldwide. So Boston, I spent several months in New York, at the Columbia campus, at the NYU campus, again, places that many of you will recognize. And then, of course, I have spent a wonderful year in Philadelphia as a visiting professor at the Wharton School, the opulence of the Wharton School. And one thing that I will never forget when I got there, and one of the first things they said to me, that every visiting professor there received a budget of $10,000. And the only rule was you can spend it on anything you want except on yourself, on your own salary. I thought that was fantastic. Just the confidence, the trust that I would do something useful with it. And certainly in those days, inconceivable that could ever have happened in the Netherlands. I thought it was just great. Not just the money, but the thought behind the money that again made me realize how lucky I was to be there at that time and to do what I did. So over the years, and again, I'm sure this is something you all recognize and share, it was more than enough to develop a lifelong affection for the United States as a place to live, as a place to visit. For me professionally, the best country in the world, a very generous host on so many occasions, and beyond that, a great country just to be, a great democracy in action. And if there are some mixed feelings about the US right